Hello and welcome to video 18. It's all about focus today, kids. Okay, so I'm sure you've had a bajillion parents, coaches, teachers tell you to focus more often. So today we're going to talk about what focus is, why it's so important, and how you can do it even better than you are right now. Okay, so first of all, what is focus? Okay, so focus is the ability to think about or perceive something to the exclusion of other things, either intentionally or by accident. Focus is the ability to think about or perceive something to the exclusion of other things, either intentionally or by accident. All right, so we've all been at some version of a party where there's a lot of people and there's music and there's talking and there's mayhem going on over there. We've all had the experience of having to try to talk to someone at this party and keep track of what they're saying through all the other din of noise. The ability for us to do that, the ability for us to focus on or perceive, okay, only the person who's talking to, only their words and not all the rest of the other stuff, is what's called the cocktail party phenomenon in psychological terms. So this is something that psychologists actually talk about, is how we're able to perceive stuff in the world and exclude other things. So we're excluding everything else and we're trying to only include or focus on, perceive the words that they are saying, and not only hear them, but figure out what meaning there is and how we could involve ourselves in the conversation. So focus is the ability to take irrelevant things out and include important things. So at the party, the irrelevant or unimportant things is all the other noise. The important stuff is the stuff that's coming out of the person in the conversation with us, his voice, what's coming out of her mouth, and how we're trying to be involved in the conversation. So our ability to focus on that person's words and exclude other things is a pretty good primer for what focus is. Okay, so now how does focus involve itself in sport? Well, that's an easy one. I mean, how many distractions are there in sports? I mean, you've got what kind of day you had walking in, you've got defenders, you've got coaches that expect big things out of you or might yell at you or just don't approve of you as much as you might like. And there's all kinds of things we could think about other than the task at hand, which for us is volleyball. How to pass, set, and hit that ball so that we get more points than the bad guys. So we're going to talk today about how to use focus and how we kind of get on a little bit of momentum with focus and make it work for us. So one of the things we have to talk about is focus always done on purpose? Is focus always done on purpose? Your coaches and parents and teachers are like, get focused, come on, stay with me. Are you hearing me? This is important stuff. Yes, I've heard it a lot. Thanks, adult in my life. So they're constantly asking you to always be focused. Now, I got news for you. Focus is not always done intentionally. I give to you the concept of daydreaming, which most of us, including me, are good at that. Daydreaming is a wonderful version of focus. It's generally an unfocused if you will, version of focus, in that daydreaming usually happens when you're supposed to be focused on other things. You're choosing to exclude the thing that's going on in class to think about, I don't know, somebody cute in your life or something you'd rather be doing. So you're doing wonderful focus, it's just not on what the adult or what you're there for is supposed to be on. So it's not always done on purpose, but it should be. And you should be choosing the things that you focus on because your brain has a lot of work to do in a day. And if you don't choose wisely the things that your brain thinks about, it will choose them on its own. So the same thing happens when we get involved in sport. If you don't choose what to think about, your brain will do something. And that something is safety. So let me explain. For those of us that can hit the hard cross and can hit the line and wonder why we don't do it more often, is because when you jump, your brain gets a little bit overloaded and maybe you haven't succeeded the last few times and your brain's thinking, don't screw up or stay safe, which is about the same thing. And so your hand, being controlled by your brain because you're not in control of it, just does something safe and you kind of hit straight ahead or at the block or you hope there's a hole there or whatever it is. You're perfectly capable every time you say, well, let's make sure we hit cross this time, of doing it. Why don't you do it more often? because you're not doing things on purpose. You're letting your back of your brain, your emotions, your moods, your desire for safety and or doing things you know you won't screw up, run the show, as opposed to you taking reasonable risks and saying, it's about time I push this block over by hitting cross a few times, and then I will crush the ball line, and then their hopes will be crushed, and I get to win, and they get to lose, which is how we like things. So focus we're going to talk about today should be done on purpose. If you don't, you're wasting so much of the brain power that you have available, and there's so much more that you could be, do, and have if you're only doing things on purpose. So let's use that. You want to talk about on purpose? We got to talk about goals. Why do you think we have those little journals? I'm trying to give you guys things to think about, and I want you to continue to think about them to the exclusion of other things while we're practicing and while we're playing. We have a really important run of tournaments coming up, and I would love for you guys to have some goals that you could achieve and then keep them in your minds on purpose because they're important to you at the exclusion of other things, and be able to achieve those goals, because there's so many things you can do if you just remember to do them. There's so many places you can be and things you can do if you just focus. So pick some good goals. It's why we have them for every practice. Keep them in your head on purpose, and then go out and achieve them on purpose. If you're not achieving them, even though you're keeping them in your head, you need to find new ways of going after those goals. And that is fine. All of life, especially sport, is one great big experiment. Nobody has the answers on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh try. We always get them later. It's a process of elimination. How do I get my goals? I keep my goals in my head because I choose to. I constantly act toward them, and I find ways to not do them, stop doing those to the exclusion of other things, and focus on the new method I'm trying to achieve my goals. Aha! Now, let's talk about how we get there, how we get to the point where we're focused enough to get past all the junk and into a peak performance state.